I'm 70 years old, and I just discovered I've been a walking ATM for 25 years. The revelation came in my accountant's office on a Tuesday afternoon. Tom Chen had spreadsheets covering his conference table, tax returns going back to when I married Margaret. Downtown San Francisco sprawled beyond the floor to ceiling windows, but I couldn't see any of it. My vision had narrowed to the numbers on his laptop screen. "You've built quite a legacy for Marcus," Tom said, scrolling through column after column. "These transfers total just over 2.3 million. My hand stopped halfway to my coffee cup. "Transfers," I said. "Plural? College tuition, business seed funding, the property investments." He pulled up another document. "You've been extraordinarily generous to your stepson over the years. I've spotted fraud in billion-dollar pitch decks. I've identified hidden liabilities that would have bankrupted entire portfolios." But sitting there, staring at evidence of my own systematic exploitation, I felt my stomach drop like I'd missed a step in the dark. "Show me the property deeds," I said quietly. Tom's fingers moved across the keyboard. 7 properties appeared, every single one titled solely in Marcus's name. I didn't remember authorizing that. Let me tell you how a smart man becomes a fool. It starts with wanting to be loved. I made my fortune reading people and patterns. Early investor in Google, Amazon, Netflix. I saw opportunities others missed. Built a portfolio worth 47 million by the time I retired at 55. I could spot a bad deal from across a boardroom. Identify the tell when someone was hiding something in their pitch deck. But in my own home, I was blind. Willfully, stupidly blind. My first marriage ended when I was 43. Jennifer and I were cordial about it. No kids, 2 careers, just no real connection. She told me years later she'd never felt deeply attached to me. That confession haunted me more than the divorce itself. What if I was fundamentally unlovable beyond what I could provide? Then I met Margaret at a charity gala in 2000. She was 40, recently divorced, raising 2 sons alone. When she looked at me, I felt seen in a way Jennifer never managed. She asked about my work with genuine interest. She laughed at my jokes. She made me feel like I mattered beyond my bank account. I was wrong about that last part. My sister Linda warned me before the wedding. Actually, she did more than warn. She stood up at the rehearsal dinner and said, "Margaret is marrying your bank account, not you." I didn't speak to Linda for 15 years after that. Chose my fiancée over my own sister. One of many mistakes I'd come to regret. Margaret came with 2 sons from her first marriage. Marcus was 19 when we married. Charming, full of ideas, reminded me of myself at that age. Or so I told myself. James was 17, quieter, kept his distance. I barely knew him. Assumed it was typical teenage stuff, middle child dynamics. Marcus called me Richard, never Dad. I convinced myself that was modern, respectful. The truth, he never saw me as a father. Just a resource to be managed. Those first 5 years felt happy. Margaret hosted elegant dinners. We traveled. I played patriarch at Sunday brunches, dispensing wisdom and writing checks. When Marcus needed help with tuition, I provided it. When he had a business idea, I funded it. When James tried to tell me something was off about the family dynamics, I dismissed it as sibling rivalry. I see now what I refused to see then. Margaret always redirected conversations when I suggested Marcus needed tougher love. Small financial requests grew incrementally, so gradually I never noticed the pattern. She managed all household finances to free me up for important work. I was grateful. Thought I'd found a true partner. Christmas 2024 stands out in memory. Marcus presented me with a photo book titled 25 Years of Family. Margaret teared up. I felt like I'd finally arrived as a father figure, like I'd built something real. That photo book cost $60 to make. I'd paid 2.3 million for the illusion it represented. My routine was predictable. Swim 40 laps every morning at 6. Manage my portfolio from the home office. Attend charity galas with Margaret on my arm, her playing the perfect society wife. Every Sunday, brunch where I presided over my blended family like some benevolent king. "You've given Marcus such a gift," Margaret said that Christmas, squeezing my hand. Believing in him when no one else did. Believing. Such a generous word for bankrolling. I confused enabling with love. They confused me with a bank. And for 25 years, that misunderstanding defined our family. Then came that Friday in March. Betrayal desco arwe. Tom didn't notice my reaction. He kept talking about tax efficiency and estate planning while I stared at those property titles like they were written in a foreign language I'd suddenly learned to read. When did I authorize Marcus as sole owner? I asked. Tom scrolled back through his files. These were structured as gifts. You signed the purchase agreements, but the deeds went directly into his name. Standard approach for family wealth transfers. Standard. The word sat bitter on my tongue. I'd signed documents Margaret brought me, trusting she'd reviewed them with our estate attorney. Never questioned why I needed to sign so many papers for family investments. I asked Tom to print everything. Every transfer, every property deed, every business investment over 25 years. He looked concerned, probably thought I was having some kind of senior moment, but he printed it all. I left his office with a folder 2 inches thick. I should have driven home. Should have confronted Margaret immediately. Instead, I sat in my car in the parking garage for 30 minutes, just staring at the bay through the windshield. The fog was rolling in thick, erasing the bridge. Felt appropriate. That evening I had another appointment. Routine refinancing for an investment property in Oakland. I almost canceled. My head was spinning with Tom's revelations, but I'd learned long ago that maintaining routine helps when your world is tilting. Amanda Rodriguez, my loan officer, greeted me with her usual efficiency. Paperwork spread across her desk, everything ready for signatures. This should be quick, she said. Straightforward like the vacation home refinances. I looked up from the document in my hand. The vacation home refinances. Her smile faltered. The Tahoe property. Mrs. Holloway has handled those, but they're in your file. Let me pull them up. She turned her monitor toward me. 4 separate refinances. 4 times Margaret had borrowed against the house I'd owned before we married. The house I'd added her to the deed for. Estate planning purposes. $850,000. Extracted over 16 years. When was the most recent one? My voice sounded calm. Years of negotiations had taught me to control my tone, even when my pulse was hammering. 3 weeks ago. 75,000. Amanda's professional mask cracked slightly. Mr. Holloway, is there a problem? I assumed you and Mrs. Holloway coordinated on these. We did. I lied. Just getting my records straight. Could you print the full history? I took those documents too. Sat in the bank parking lot this time. Referencing dates with my phone calendar. Every refinance coincided with one of Marcus's opportunities. The Seattle tech startup. The organic restaurant chain. The cryptocurrency venture. The sustainable housing project. 4 businesses. 4 failures. 4 times Margaret had secretly borrowed against our property to fund his dreams. My phone buzzed. Margaret's name on the screen. Where are you? Dinner's almost ready. Running late, I said. Don't wait for me. I drove to Ocean Beach instead. Parked facing the Pacific, watching waves hammer the shore in the fading light. I'd always found clarity near water. Something about the rhythm helped me think. The documents sat in my passenger seat. Evidence of systematic betrayal. But betrayal required intent, required knowledge that what you're doing is wrong. Did Margaret know? Or had she convinced herself this was just family helping family? I pulled out my laptop, connected to my phone's hotspot, and started downloading banking apps I'd never bothered with. Margaret handled our household finances. Handled them right into Marcus's accounts, apparently. The first login made my chest tight. Our primary checking account showed regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize. 500 here, 1,000 there, sometimes 5,000. Monthly, like clockwork for years. I opened our investment account next. Found advisor notes about client requested liquidations for family support. Dates going back over a decade. Stocks sold, funds transferred, all with Margaret's authorization. She had power of attorney. I'd given it to her 10 years ago when I had knee surgery. Never revoked it afterward. Trusted her to handle things while I recovered. She'd been handling things ever since. By the time I drove home, it was past midnight. The house was dark except for the porch light Margaret always left on for me. I sat in the driveway for a long moment, looking at our home. Our beautiful Pacific Heights Victorian with the bay views and the manicured garden. Built on lies, funded by my blindness. I didn't go inside. Instead, I drove to my office downtown, let myself into the empty building, and began the real investigation. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Just reviewed documents, built spreadsheets, traced every dollar I'd ever given, or that had been taken without my knowledge. My office had filing cabinets full of old tax returns, bank statements, investment records. I pulled everything related to Marcus, created a master timeline. Each entry felt like a small cut, individually minor, collectively devastating. 2001, 15,000 for emergency car repair. I remembered Marcus calling, voice tight with stress. The transmission had failed. He'd miss work without a car. Could I help? I'd wired the money that afternoon. Felt good about it. Father figure stepping up. Except I found the credit card statement later. That 15,000 had paid off his Visa bill. No transmission repair. Just debt. 2,000 and 340,000 for tuition assistance. Marcus was doing his MBA, Margaret said. An investment in his future. I wrote the check proudly. The university had no record of him that semester. The money went to pay off another failed business venture. 2005, 75,000 for a family investment property that would generate rental income. I'd seen the prospectus Margaret prepared. Sounded solid. Seen the papers without reading them carefully. The property existed. Marcus owned it solely. Sold it 3 years later for a profit he pocketed entirely. On and on. A pattern so clear I couldn't believe I'd missed it. Every major life event in our marriage had a corresponding extraction. My retirement party. Marcus needed startup capital. Our anniversary trip. Marcus's restaurant was struggling. Margaret's birthday. Marcus was being evicted each time. Margaret had framed it as family helping family. Each time. I'd felt noble providing support. Each time I'd been played. By 4 in the morning on day 2, I had the full accounting. $2.3 million over 25 years. An average of 92,000 per year. Some years light, some heavy, but always flowing in one direction. The money itself didn't matter. I had plenty. What gutted me was the deception, the systematic, coordinated manipulation. I needed to know how deep this went. On day 3, I called Linda, my sister, the one I hadn't really spoken to in 15 years except for awkward exchanges at our mother's funeral. Richard. Her voice was cautious. We didn't do surprise phone calls. I need to meet with you. Today if possible. Is everything okay? No, I said. It's really not. We met at Swan Oster Depot for lunch. Linda arrived in a sharp pantsuit, lawyer armor firmly in place. She studied my face across the table, probably cataloging the damage. I hadn't shaved in 3 days. Hadn't slept. Must have looked like hell. You were right, I said without preamble. About Margaret. About everything. Linda set down her menu slowly. Tell me. I slid the spreadsheet across the table. Watched her eyes scan the columns, the totals, the dates. Waited for the "I told you so" that never came. Instead, she pulled a folder from her briefcase. I kept notes. From before you married her. And after? You've been tracking my marriage. I've been watching you get exploited. She corrected. Hoping you'd eventually see it yourself. Her folder contained observations spanning 2 decades. Margaret complaining to mutual friends that I was difficult with money. Marcus referring to me as the wallet at a restaurant where Linda happened to be dining. James trying to talk to me at a family gathering 5 years ago. Me brushing him off. James tried to warn me. I asked. Linda nodded. More than once. You thought he was jealous of Marcus. Classic golden child scapegoat dynamic. Margaret created it deliberately. Why didn't you push harder? I did. You stopped speaking to me. She softened slightly. Richard, you weren't ready to hear it. People believe what they need to believe. You needed to believe you'd built a real family. I stared at my untouched oysters. I enabled this. My pride needed me to be the generous patriarch. She saw that need and exploited it. You're both guilty, Linda agreed. She's guilty of theft and manipulation. You're guilty of willful blindness. 2 things can be true. What do I do now? Linda leaned forward.
What do you want to do?
I want them to understand what they did. I want consequences. I stopped. Took a breath. I want my dignity back. Divorce. Prenup favors her after 20 years. She'd get half of everything. Criminal charges. She has power of attorney. I gave her access. It's murky legally. Linda drummed her fingers on the table thinking. What if you don't divorce her? What if you restructure everything into a trust she can't touch, then let her stay married to the title while removing access to the money? I looked at my sister. Really looked at her for the first time in years. That's cold. It's strategic. You want revenge, get smart revenge. I'd need trustees I can trust. I volunteer. She paused. And maybe talk to James. He got out of this family for good reasons. He might help. The idea of James helping me seemed absurd. I barely knew him. Had dismissed his attempts at connection for years. Why would he help me? Because he's been where you are. He saw through Margaret years ago and left. Maybe he wants to see someone finally hold her accountable. Linda gave me James's number. I stared at it for a long time after lunch, sitting in my car, before I finally made the call. Richard. James sounded surprised. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. I need to talk to you about your mother. There was a long pause. Then, finally, I was wondering when you'd figure it out. We met that evening at a coffee shop in the Mission. James showed up in work boots and a Carhartt jacket, smelling faintly of sawdust. He'd built a successful contracting business, completely independent of family money. Everything Marcus wasn't. How long have you known? I asked. That she was using you, since the beginning. James stirred his coffee slowly. She did the same thing to my dad. Bled him dry while pretending to be the perfect wife. He finally left when Marcus and I were teenagers. I watched it happen again with you. You tried to tell me. You weren't listening. You wanted to be the hero who saved the broken family. Mom's really good at finding men like that. Men like what? Men who need to be needed. Men with more money than emotional intelligence. No offense. I absorbed that. Known taken. It's accurate. James pulled out his phone, showed me text messages between him and Marcus from years ago. Marcus calling me. The golden goose. Jokes about how long they could keep the con running. Marcus asking James to help manipulate me. I refused, James said. Told Marcus he was being a parasite. He said I was just jealous. Mom backed him up. That's when I left for good. Why help me now? He met my eyes. Because you're finally ready to hear the truth. And because someone needs to stop her before she finds another victim. He paused. Also, honestly, you were always decent to me, even if you weren't paying attention. You didn't deserve this. I felt something crack in my chest. This kid, this man I'd ignored for 25 years, was showing me more loyalty than the family I'd bought. I'm going to need help, I said. Linda's helping with the legal structure, but I need someone who knows how Margaret operates. James smiled grimly. I know exactly how she operates. What did you have in mind? Over coffee that stretched into dinner, we built the framework for what would come next. James confirmed what I'd suspected. Marcus knew everything. Participated willingly. Called it managing Richard, in conversations with Margaret. The betrayal wasn't just Margaret's. It was both of them, coordinated, systematic. Here's what you need to understand, James said. A mom genuinely believes she's protecting Marcus. In her mind, mothers do whatever it takes. She doesn't see it as theft. She sees it as securing her son's future with resources you have in excess. That's insane. That's narcissism wrapped in maternal love. Dangerous combination. He told me about Marcus's current situation. 4 failed businesses. Debt accumulating. Already asking Margaret about approaching me for another loan, this time to co-sign on a house. They're planning another extraction. I asked, your last one, probably. Big finale. Get you to co-sign for $800,000. Marcus defaults, you're on the hook. Margaret inherits everything when you die. James's expression was dark. She's been positioning you for weeks, hasn't she? Talking about how Marcus is finally maturing. I nodded slowly. Margaret had been exceptionally affectionate lately. Lots of comments about legacy, about how proud I should be of Marcus's growth, softening me up for the kill. When's this ask happening? Marcus's birthday party. 3 weeks. Mom's planning something big. I looked at James across the table. Saw myself if I'd made different choices 25 years ago. Sin the truth. Walked away. Built something real. What if we use that party differently? I said. James's smile was sharp. I'm listening. Linda's law office after hours became our war room. She'd cleared her conference table, covered it with trust documents and asset inventories. James sat across from me, arms crossed, while Linda paced with a legal pad. Let's be clear about what you're doing, Linda said. This isn't just protecting assets. This is engineered humiliation. Is that a problem? I asked. Legally? No. Morally. She shrugged. That's between you and your conscience. James leaned forward. They humiliated you for 25 years. called you the wallet behind your back, systematically stole from you while pretending to love you. I'd say you're being restrained. The law gives me options, I said. Divorce. Criminal charges, maybe. But none of that feels proportional to what they did. Proportional how? Linda asked. They didn't just take my money. They took my dignity, made me complicit in my own exploitation. I enabled this by needing to be needed so badly I ignored every warning sign. I met her eyes. I want them to feel what I felt. That moment when you realize you've been played. When 25 years of your life recontextualize in an instant. Linda stopped pacing. Public exposure. At Marcus's birthday party. James added, Mom's planning this huge event. 50 guests, all their society friends. She's setting you up for the house co-signing ask. What if instead of writing a check I present a different kind of gift? I said. Linda smiled. Actually smiled. A timeline of your generosity, every dollar, every property, every business investment, all framed as celebrating family legacy. The subtext being devastatingly obvious. James finished. Then I announced the trust. I continued. All assets locked away in a revocable structure. You and James as trustees. Everything going to charity supporting stepchildren from blended families. The irony would be perfect, Linda said. Helping actual stepchildren who deserve it. James shifted uncomfortably. What about the morality of this? You're essentially trapping Margaret in a marriage where she has no financial power. She can leave any time, I said. The prenup still exists. She'd get alimony, just not half my assets. That's fair. Isaac, James pressed. I hate what she did to you. She did worse to my dad. But trapping someone in a gilded cage feels proportional. I interrupted. She trapped me in an illusion for 25 years. I'm just making the cage visible. Linda intervened. Let's focus on mechanics. Richard, you'll need to transfer everything into the trust before the party. That takes time. We're looking at 2 weeks minimum. Marcus's party is 3 weeks away, I said, tight but doable. Linda made notes. I'll draft the trust documents. You'll need to sign everything, move assets, establish the foundation structure. James, you're comfortable being co-trustee? Absolutely, he said. Someone needs to make sure this actually helps people, not just punishes Mom. I looked at him. You think I'm being vindictive? I think you're hurt and angry, and you have every right to be. I also think revenge rarely satisfies the way you hope it will. He softened slightly. But I get it, I really do. Just don't lose yourself in this. Over the next 2 weeks, we executed the plan with surgical precision. Linda structured an irrevocable trust with herself and James as trustees. I transferred my investment portfolio, rental properties, everything liquid. Kept the house, couldn't remove that without tipping off Margaret, but secured it with lions and legal protections. The foundation paperwork came together. Real scholarships for real stepchildren. If I was going to weaponize charity, it would at least be functional charity. Meanwhile, Margaret grew increasingly affectionate. She'd sensed something was off, deployed her charm offensive. Special breakfasts, reminiscing about early years, increased physical warmth. One Sunday morning, she brought me coffee in bed. Sat beside me, running fingers through my hair. You seem distant lately, darling. Is everything all right? The endearment felt calculated now. Every darling, a tell. Just thinking about legacy, I said truthfully. What I'm leaving behind. You've built such a beautiful life for us, she said. Marcus is so grateful. We both are. I nearly broke then. Part of me wanted to believe it was real, that maybe I'd misunderstood, that there was innocent explanation for everything. Then my phone buzzed. Text from Jamies. Marcus just asked Mom how to approach you about the house. She said leave it to me. Still think she deserves benefit of the doubt. I deleted the message, kissed Margaret's forehead. I'm grateful too. For clarity. She smiled, missing the subtext entirely. 2 days before the party everything was in place. The trust was irrevocable. The presentation was ready. The trap was set. I just had to spring it. Marcus's 45th birthday party was everything Margaret excelled at creating. Our Pacific Heights home glowed with soft lighting. Catered hors d'oeuvres circulated on silver trays. Champagne flowed. 50 guests mingled in the living room, society friends, business contacts, Marcus's entrepreneur circle. Margaret wore navy silk and pearls, every inch the gracious hostess. She touched arms during conversations, laughed at jokes, made everyone feel welcome. I watched her perform the role she'd perfected over 25 years and felt nothing. The anger had burned itself out during 2 weeks of planning. What remained was cold clarity. Marcus held court near the fireplace, accepting congratulations, telling stories about his latest venture. At 45, he still had that boyish charm, that easy way of making people believe his next idea would finally be the one. I played my part perfectly. The proud stepfather, champagne glass in hand, accepting congratulations on Marcus's milestone. No one suspected what I'd done that morning, what was already in motion. At 8:30, Marcus found me on the terrace. "Richard, can we talk?" "Privately." "Of course." I followed him to my study, closed the door. Margaret had positioned this beautifully, the party as cover for the big ask. Marcus sat in the leather chair across from my desk. Nervous energy radiated off him. "I wanted to thank you for everything over the years. Your support has meant the world." "You're welcome. And I wanted to talk to you about an opportunity." He pulled out his phone, showed me listings. "I found a house. Perfect location, great investment potential. But I need a co-signer for the mortgage. 800,000. I know it's a lot, but I can't do that, Marcus." He blinked. "I understand it's significant. Maybe we could structure it differently. A personal loan. I'd pay you back with interest." "No. I mean, I can't. Legally. I no longer have the authority." Confusion crossed his face. "What do you mean?" "This morning I transferred all my assets into an irrevocable trust. Linda and James are trustees. I no longer control the funds." The color drained from his face. "You? What? Why would you do that?" "Estate planning. Tax efficiency. Protecting assets for charitable purposes." Each phrase clinically neutral. "The Holloway Foundation for Stepchildren launches next month. Scholarships, mentorship programs. Real support for kids from blended families who need help building independent futures." He stared at me. "This is because I asked for money." "No. This has been in the works for weeks. You just happened to ask on the day it finalized. Mom said you'd help," she said. He stopped. Realized what he'd admitted. "She said what, Marcus?" His jaw tightened. "Nothing. Forget it. Your mother has been preparing you to ask me for weeks." "I know. Just like she prepared me 24 years ago when you needed tuition. And 17 years ago for the Seattle startup. And 12 years ago for the restaurant." Marcus stood abruptly. "I don't know what you think happened, but $2.3 million, Marcus. I have documentation. Every transfer, every property, every business investment. All tracked, all quantified. You wanted to help. You offered. Did I? Or did Margaret suggest I offer, after she'd spent weeks positioning me?" He moved toward the door. "I'm not having this conversation. The trust is irrevocable. The house is protected with lions. Your mother's power of attorney is revoked. The accounts she had access to are closed. New accounts exist, but only Linda and James can authorize withdrawals." His hand froze on the doorknob. "What are you saying?" "The bank is closed, Marcus. Permanently. You're punishing me for asking for help. I'm establishing boundaries I should have set 25 years ago. You're 45. It's time to stand without my money propping you up." He turned, and I saw something raw in his expression. Fear, maybe, or the first glimpse of understanding that his safety net had vanished. "Does Mom know?" "Not yet. But she will when she tries to access accounts tomorrow. When she discovers the vacation home can't be refinanced again. When she realizes the gravy train doesn't just stop. It never existed in the first place. Just an illusion funded by my need to be needed. This is cruel." "Yes," I agreed. "Cruelty would be continuing to enable you until you're 50, 60, unable to function without my subsidies. This is mercy, Marcus. Painful mercy." He left without another word. I watched through the study window as he found Margaret, pulled her aside, whispered urgently. Saw her face change. Saw her glance toward the study, eyes meeting mine through the glass. She knew. I rejoined the party, smiled, made small talk. Played the gracious host while Margaret's world crumbled in real time behind her hostess mask. I watched her maintain composure. Saw the calculation happening behind her eyes as she worked through the implications. No dramatic announcement. No public spectacle. Just the quiet, devastating realization that she'd lost. By 9:30, guests were leaving. Margaret made excuses about an early morning, ushered people out with characteristic grace. But her movements were mechanical now. Autopilot. When the last guest departed, she found me in the living room, collecting abandoned champagne flutes. We need to talk. Yes, we do. She stood there in her navy silk dress, pearls still perfect, every inch the society wife. But her eyes were different, harder, the mask slipping. When were you going to tell me? I just did. Through Marcus. Seemed appropriate. He's been the intermediary for 25 years. You had no right? I had every right. They're my assets, or they were. Now they're the foundation's assets. Irrevocable means exactly that, Margaret. Nothing left to discuss. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. For a moment, I thought she might actually scream. But decades of breeding won out. Control reasserted itself. I'll contest this. Undue influence, diminished capacity. You're welcome to try. Linda's very good, and I had a full psychiatric evaluation last week. Sound mind, clear judgment documented in triplicate. I set down the champagne flutes. You can stay in this house. You'll have an allowance for expenses. We'll maintain appearances at necessary events. But financially, we're done. Marcus needs. Marcus is 45 years old. What he needs is to learn consequences. Something your protection made impossible. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, quietly, I'll leave. File for divorce. The prenup still exists. You'll get alimony. Not half the assets, but you'll be comfortable. Or you can stay. Your choice. Why would I stay? Because leaving means admitting defeat. Staying means you keep the title, the house, the social standing. You've spent 25 years building Mrs. Holloway. Walking away from that might be harder than you think. I left her standing there in the empty living room, surrounded by the remnants of the party she'd orchestrated so perfectly. The party that was supposed to end with my signature on Marcus's mortgage. Instead, it ended with the quiet death of the illusion we'd both maintained for 25 years. No audience, no drama, just truth finally, between two people who'd been lying to each other since the beginning. I found Margaret in our bedroom an hour after the last guest left. She stood at the window overlooking the bay, still in her navy silk dress, but she'd removed the pearls. They sat coiled on the dresser like a discarded costume piece. That was cruel, she said without turning around. Yes, it was. She turned then, and I saw her face had changed. The gracious hostess was gone. What remained was someone harder, colder, more honest. You humiliated Marcus and me. In front of everyone we know. I showed them the truth. If that's humiliating, perhaps truth was the problem. You could have discussed this with me privately. Like a marriage. I almost laughed. We haven't had a marriage, Margaret. We've had a transaction. I finally read the terms. Her expression shifted from hurt to something sharper. Fine, you want honesty, let's be honest. She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, kicked off her heels. The transformation was complete. Devoted wife to adversary in seconds. You bought your way into a family you were never part of, she said. Used money to control us. To feel important. Pathetic old man buying love because you couldn't earn it. The words were designed to wound. They did. But I'd spent 2 weeks preparing for this conversation. You're right, I said. I did need you. I needed to feel like I mattered beyond my portfolio. And you saw that need and exploited it for 25 years. I gave you a beautiful home, a social life, companionship. I earned every dollar, Richard. Then we agree it was transactional. Good. The transaction is complete. She stood abruptly. You want a divorce? Fine. The prenup gives me half after 20 years. 25 years I'll do very well. I'm not divorcing you. Confusion flickered across her face. Then what? I'm closing the bank. You're welcome to stay, Mrs. Holloway. We'll maintain appearances, attend the galas, host the charity events. But financially, we're done. Everything's in a revocable trust. Linda controls it. You'll have an allowance for household expenses. Nothing more. I watched her process this. Saw the calculation happening behind her eyes. She was trying to find the angle, the leverage, the way to turn this around. You can't do that. This is my home too. It's my home, now held in trust. You can live here as long as you wish. But you can't leverage it, refinance it, or inherit it. The prenup still exists. You can leave any time and get your alimony. Just not half my assets. Marcus needs. Marcus is 45 years old. Marcus needs to stand on his own feet. Something your protection made impossible. Her voice rose. I protected my son. That's what mothers do. You stole from your husband. That's what con artists do. He would have failed without me. He failed to buy THU Margaret. 4 businesses over 25 years. All collapsed. Your protection didn't make him strong. It made him dependent. She stood there, chest heaving, fury radiating off her. Then her voice dropped, became almost plaintive. Did you ever really love me? The question surprised me. Genuine for the first time in this conversation, I thought about it, gave her honesty. I loved who I thought you were. Did you ever love me? The silence stretched between us. I watched her face, saw the moment she decided to stop lying. I convinced myself I did, she said quietly. You made life easier, secure, safe. There it is, I said. The only honest thing you've said in years. She sat back down on the bed, and I saw something break in her posture. Not defeat exactly. Recognition, maybe. That the game was over. What happens now? She asked. You live here. Keep your title, your social calendar, your book club. But the gravy train stops. Marcus is on his own, and so are you. The whispers will be unbearable. Everyone will know. Everyone already knows, I just confirmed it. She looked up at me, and I saw genuine fear in her eyes. You'll die alone, Richard. I've been alone for 25 years, Margaret. I just didn't realize it. I moved to the door, paused with my hand on the frame. I'm sleeping in the guest room. We'll work out permanent arrangements tomorrow. For tonight, I just need distance. Richard. What? She opened her mouth, closed it. Whatever she'd been about to say, plea, threat, explanation, she swallowed it. Nothing, she said finally. Nothing at all. I left her sitting there in the dark, still in her party dress, surrounded by the ruins of the life she'd constructed. The guest room felt sterile but honest. I lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Triumph. Satisfaction. Justice. Instead, I felt hollow. My phone buzzed. Linda, you okay? No, but I will be. James, first night's the hardest. Want company? I almost said yes. Almost asked him to come over, to fill the silence with another human presence. But I needed to sit with this. To understand what I'd done and what it cost. Tomorrow, I texted back. Coffee. Count on it. I didn't sleep that night. Just replayed the confrontation, Margaret's face when she finally told the truth, Marcus's inability to apologize. The party guests filtering out early, their expressions ranging from pity to scandal, hungry delight. I'd wanted them to understand what they did to me. That moment when everything you believed recontextualizes. When 25 years of your life inverts in an instant. Mission accomplished. So why did it feel so empty? Around 3 in the morning, I heard Margaret moving around downstairs. The clink of glass on glass. She was drinking. I didn't go down. We'd said everything that needed saying. By dawn, I understood what James meant about the hard part. Revenge is easy when you're planning it. Satisfying when you're executing it. Living with the aftermath. That's where it gets complicated. I'd won. Reclaimed my assets, my dignity, my truth. But Margaret was right about one thing. I would likely die alone. Not because I'd exposed her, but because I'd spent 25 years choosing comfortable illusion over difficult honesty. That pattern didn't disappear overnight just because I'd finally confronted it. The sun rose over the bay, gold light spilling across the water. New day, new reality. Same house, different marriage. I got up, put on my swimsuit, went to the pool. 40 laps. Counting strokes, finding rhythm, letting the water carry some of the weight. When I pulled myself out, dripping and exhausted, Margaret stood at the kitchen window watching me. Our eyes met through the glass. No smiles, no waves, just acknowledgement. This was our life now. Roommates with a shared address in separate worlds. Both guilty. Both lonely. Both trapped in a cage we'd built together. I wrapped the towel around my shoulders and went inside through the side door. Avoiding the kitchen. Avoiding her. The first day of the rest of our arrangement had begun. 2 years have passed since that birthday party. The whispers lasted about 6 months before society found fresher scandal to dissect. Margaret and I still live in the same house, still attend the same galas, still play the part of the Holloways when required. We're just better at pretending now. Or maybe we've stopped pretending and simply accepted the truth. She has her wing of the house. I have mine. We coordinate schedules through a shared calendar. Tuesday mornings, she hosts her book club in the living room. I make sure to be at the office. Thursday evenings, I have dinner with Linda and James. Margaret goes to her pottery class. We're unfailingly polite when we cross paths. She makes excellent coffee. I still put fresh flowers in the entryway every Monday because she likes them. Small courtesies between people who share an address, but not a life. Marcus hasn't spoken to me since the party. I tried reaching out once about 6 months in. Moment of weakness, maybe. Or guilt. The message went unanswered. James tells me Marcus is struggling financially, still living off what little Margaret can provide from her household allowance. Still waiting for his big break. I feel nothing about that. Not satisfaction. Not regret. Just nothing. The affection I thought I had for him evaporated when I understood it was built on lies. James and I have dinner every week. Real conversations about real things. His business, my foundation work, the giant's life. He's become the son I should have noticed 25 years ago. The irony doesn't escape me. I spent millions trying to buy Marcus's affection, while ignoring the stepson who actually had integrity. You seem lighter, James said last week over tacos. Do I? Less angry. More at peace. I considered that. I'm not sure it's peace. More like acceptance. I paid $2.3 million for a very expensive education. What did you learn? That family can't be purchased, only recognized. That enabling isn't love. That I confused being needed with being valued. I paused. And that revenge, even justified revenge, doesn't heal the wound. It just closes the account. The Holloway Foundation has given out 37 scholarships so far. Real money helping real kids from blended families build independent futures. Linda vets every application personally. James interviews the finalists. I sign the checks. It's the only part of this that feels genuinely good. The only legacy I'm building that isn't tainted by ego or need. Margaret occasionally asks about the foundation at dinner, the rare times we eat together, usually before some charity event we're both attending. How many scholarships this year? She'll ask. 12. That's wonderful, Richard. Truly, I think she means it. Or maybe she's just performing. I've stopped trying to distinguish between Margaret's authentic reactions and her calculated ones. The line blurred so long ago I'm not sure it exists anymore. Linda asks me regularly if I regret it, the revenge, the exposure, the trap. Yes and no, I tell her. I regret marrying Margaret. I don't regret exposing her. Would you do it differently if you could go back? I'd pay attention to James. I'd listen to you. I'd be honest with myself about why I needed to be patriarch so badly. I think about it, but I can't go back. I can only move forward with what I know now. The house feels different these days. Quieter, honest in its emptiness. Margaret and I pass each other in hallways like ghosts haunting the same space. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with something that might be regret, or might be resentment. Hard to tell. Last week I was swimming my usual 40 laps. When I pulled myself out, she was standing by the pool with a towel. You left this inside, she said, handing it to me. Thank you. We stood there for a moment, dripping water and morning light between us. Richard, she said, for what it's worth. I'm sorry. I studied her face, tried to determine if it was genuine or another manipulation. Realized I didn't care anymore. I'm sorry too, I said. And I was sorry I'd needed her so badly I blinded myself. Sorry she'd seen that need as opportunity instead of vulnerability. Sorry we'd wasted 25 years on a transaction we both pretended was love. She nodded once and went inside. I dried off, went upstairs to my room, looked at the photos on my desk. Linda laughing at something I said. James showing me a project he'd built. Real family. Chosen family. Not what I wanted 25 years ago, but real. At 70, I've learned that real is better than comfortable lies. That dignity costs more than money. That some prices are worth paying. Even when the bill leaves you hollower than you expected, was the revenge worth it? Ask me when I'm dying. For now I'm living honestly, finally. Expensively. Alone but authentic. And at this age, authenticity is the only currency that matters. If this story made you think about family, betrayal, or the price of truth, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button and subscribing. It helps me keep sharing these real experiences. Thanks for listening.